You know you have too many decks when your tarot drawer breaks on you. I don't know if you guys can see, but my drawer kind of broke and I don't know what to do. Anyway, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Casper the Boy Diviner, and because of that happening, I just feel a bit but I have to continue to do this tag because I love this tag. And the tag I'm gonna do is by Jen's Balanced Tarot, and it's called #Balance the Deck Scales. I really like this idea of balancing decks out. I have done a video of my most masculine decks. Even though I don't like that term, it was the easiest term in English that I could use, but what I meant was more yang. And therefore, I feel like balance is really important when you're doing tarot. You don't have to necessarily get two different decks of two different feelings. There are many balanced decks out there, but I think the point of this chat today would be to find different parts of your life and find decks that go together. So how Jen actually did this tag was to go through every single element in the Western tradition, the 5 of them: earth, water, air, and fire, and spirit. And then she split them into two different decks, the left hand and the right hand deck. I like that term, left hand and right hand, instead of a yin and yang. Basically two decks that come together to feel very balanced. I don't really do tarot readings with more than one deck. This tag might actually start me to try to do some of this, you know, shadow versus light, left versus right hand path kind of readings, because all of us want to be balanced, all of us want to take that middle path. So most people actually talk about their view of the elements first before they go ahead to show the decks. I will do this for this tag as well. If you're enjoying my content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps my channel out. Thank you so much. The first element we'll talk about today is earth. For earth, I have picked two decks, and they are the Spolia Tarot that I just trimmed and the Carnival at the End of the World. I really like these two decks, and I always use the Spolia Tarot for more serious readings, especially for clients. And I like the collage nature of it. I like that it is fun but not too fun. This deck can really be used for more serious kind of readings, and I find that it's really suited to career readings, things that have to do with financial stuff. And that's why I've been using this deck a lot, and I really enjoy how it looks, how it feels. For specifically more practical matters, I use this deck, and that is what Earth is to me. Earth is about practicality, Earth is about financial things, about doing things, something very actionable, and I do feel like this collage deck in particular has that kind of feeling. It's very grounded because it comes from pre-existing artwork that has been tweaked. So a good counterpart to such a serious art deck, to me this is more of a serious art deck, would be the Carnival at the End of the World, which is also very earth-based, I feel. The fact that this is at the end of the world shows that there is a sense of groundedness, even though it's in a fantastical situation. This deck has always had like, you know, where the ground is. It does feel like a very grounded deck to me, even though it is so many crazy characters. Do you see the earth again? I really like this deck, and I do feel like it has that earthy nature, maybe because of the color scheme. It's a more brownish kind of color scheme, and I feel like it might go very well with the Spolia Tarot. I feel like they are hand in hand. This is a more whimsical look at the earthy kind of part of my life, which is very practical, which is about actions, about finance, and I feel like this deck and this deck can get along. Do you see? They have similar kind of borders, they have the similar kind of color scheme, and I do like these decks that go, and they may go together. It might be something I need to experiment with. What do you think? Do you think the Carnival at the End of the World is a good complement to the Spolia Tarot? I feel like the borders, you know, that color scheme really goes together. So the next element we want to talk about would be the water element. And water element, again, I will lean to what I read for my clients. Water is really about emotions, about feelings, about emotional wellness, self-care. So it tends to be more gentle to me. And the deck I tend to use for my clients when they are asking emotionally vulnerable questions or questions about relationships and connectivity would be the Sasuraibito Tarot. This is the deck I use for most of my emotional kind of readings. I feel like a lot of the figures here are kind of close up. She rarely has any like landscape shots in a way that, you know, it's taken away. All the people here are pretty close to the camera, and they are very accessible. And when there are no people, it still feels very intimate. It's a very intimate deck. But what would be something that is less intimate but still a water kind of deck? A deck about feelings, a deck about connections and relationships. This deck is also done by a POC in America who drew from her Japanese roots and created this deck. So a good complement to this deck, I feel, to balance the scales out, would be the Stella Tarot, which is done by an actual Japanese person, but this is not a Japanese inspired deck. We all know that the Tarot is not, came from the Western, were like sort of solidified by the Western culture. So having a Japanese person create something like this would be a great complement to actually the Sasuraibito Tarot. The figures here are always a bit further away. You can see that they aren't so close and intimate. At the same time, I really like the color scheme. I feel like the colors here are so vibrant, so beautiful. And that's why I do feel like it gets along with the Sasuraibito in a different way. This also is in the water. It's definitely a water deck. I feel more emotional, even though some of the people here feel a bit alien. There is that sense that it is a more emotional deck. It is a deck that confronts the emotion straight on. Now time to look at the decks together and see if they work out. Let's see. I do feel like they are good complements to each other. They could be. They possibly can be. I think these two decks are definitely water to me, and I feel like they can work together. The next element we want to talk about is the air element. I would say air is really about intellectual behaviors, attitudes. What attitude do you have towards someone? What do you feel? What do you think about something? Communication, breaking through boundaries. All of that would be the sword suit or the air element. Art-wise, I would think that it would be something more airy, more light, more open. At the same time, because of the sword suit, there is a sense of darkness that could also come through the deck. So I picked two decks that I felt like were very airy. The first one is my current favorite, the Botan Tarot. There is a sense of airiness to this deck because of the white borders, because of how it feels when it shuffles. And there's a lot of white used in the deck, a lot of white. There is that kind of space that implies air. And the sword suit is one of my favorite suits in this deck, but even the cups, do you see how airy it is? Can you see the background with the plants swaying? I do feel like this deck is actually a water kind of deck, but it also suits the air deck. When you think about things, how you approach things, what are your attitudes towards things, I feel like the Botan Tarot is a great complement to that kind of question. See? The crow. Beautiful deck. I don't want to linger too long, waxing praise on this deck, but I think a good complement to this one is something totally opposite, which would be the Wayward Dark Tarot that I have. This is also a very airy deck considering the color scheme, I feel, and the darkness in this deck also provides that kind of absence of, that kind of space, that kind of implies air, happiness. And that blue kind of tone really makes me think about the brain, makes me think about what is rational. So even though this deck is not, of course not like a rational deck, it's not all logic, it is in a fantasy world. The color scheme, the black and the blue, and my experience with this deck, it has been quite a cerebral experience for me, this deck. Like, I have to dig deeper and think about what it's trying to tell me. Touching it now makes me miss it a little. I haven't used it in a while. But I really feel like, again, how serendipitous that this card came up for me. If we look at these two cards together, they don't really make sense. So I don't feel like it's a complement that I could actually push myself to use together. But I don't know, what do you think? Do you think these two decks can work together side by side when I do a reading? I do like these two cards together. Let me know what you think. They both represent air for me. A lot of thinking, a lot of thoughts, a lot of attitudes and communication. The next element is the fire element. The fire element can be about illumination, about understanding, about pushing yourself, about that pure pushing momentum kind of energy. And I have two decks for you that actually recently came into my collection, which is the Children of Litha Tarot. I mean, by its name, Children of Litha. I feel like there is a sense of summer to this deck already. And the deck, even though it covers really fairly all the elements, again, it does feel fiery to me. And again, what serendipity, but the Ace of Wands just appeared. There is a sense of passion in this deck, I feel. Even though if there are slower animals, you know, winter is depicted, I think, in the Pentacles, there is still that kind of passion that is within all these cards. And I feel like this is a very fiery deck, a deck about passion, about moving forwards, about pushing through your boundaries, pushing through any kind of obstacles that are in your way. That's why I really like this deck. And that's why I also think this deck is very fiery and would fit in this fiery kind of definition. What other deck can go with this deck? What other deck can balance the Children of Litha out? For me, it's actually another recent one, which is the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. I feel like whatever yin that is in the Children of Litha Tarot is in the yang of this one. The color scheme is gorgeous. I really like the color scheme in the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. And I feel like it is a good complement. It is a very fiery deck to me. Even if you saw that deck with just all blue, this has more of an objectivity. I feel like the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum is actually quite air as well, because it is holding yourself back from the whole scene, from the whole feeling, and observing. There is that kind of cold, observing kind of nature to this deck. But I also feel the passion. I feel that sense that you want to observe because you want to break through, you want to confront your obstacles, you want to push yourself. This deck is definitely a deck that forces you to push yourself. Do these decks go together? I don't know. It doesn't go together as much as like water and the earth decks do. But let's make a quick comparison. Oh my god, my lap is so full. Okay, whoops. I do think they kind of go together to some extent. Right? What do you think? Do they go together? Let me know what you think. Tell me. Yeah, these two cards look so beautiful together. I think there's some potential here that I could probably work through. Look at this. This is beautiful. This is a beautiful pairing too. I think something's telling me to work with these decks together. So let me know what you think. Do you use decks together? I'll be interested to know, and if you have any tips. I know Tarot Map has a whole course on it. I just shouldn't buy any more tarot courses because I don't finish them. The last element there is this spirit element. It is not a element that I'm familiar with that much. So I decided to take it really at face value. What is spirit? What is the soul maybe? And the two decks I came up with, I think, kind of answer that, and they balance each other really well. The first one is the Spirit Keeper's Tarot by Annabelle Wen. She is a Taiwanese Asian who applies a lot of Western tradition in these decks. There's a lot of symbolism that comes from the Western tradition. You can see, for example, these are all astrological significance. And all this is Western astrology. She does cover a bit of the Chinese astrology in the book. As to how accurate that information is, I don't know. Because Chinese astrology really goes anywhere. A lot of people are using it for themselves. And the Chinese world is really occult, so we don't really know. But I do feel like this is done by a Taiwanese American woman with a lot of knowledge in the Western occult tradition. There's a perfect deck I feel that balances this out. It's done by a white man doing what they know about an Asian tradition, and that is my Buddha Tarot by Robert M. Place. I really like the Buddha Tarot. I don't use it enough, but I feel like these two cards, these two decks are undeniably of spirit, about spirit. What else can it be? Where else would you put these decks? And this is such a colorful deck. The border is a color, you know, everything is a color. And compared to the more monochromatic colors of the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, it is so different. But I feel like both of them have some sort of balance to them, right? A Taiwanese American woman dealing with the Western occult tradition, and a white American man dealing with his knowledge of the Buddha. And I do feel like there is some sort of symmetry between these cards. Whether or not you see it, I don't know, but let me know what you think. And I do feel like these are kind of the left hand and right hand, the yin and yang, the feminine and the masculine. What do you think? I like these cards together. Well, I think that's it. I don't really have anything else to add to this tag. I really found it enjoyable to think about, enjoyable to record. Whether it's going to be practical, whether am I really going to use these decks like that, I don't know, because I have some sort of blocker, and I don't know, I don't do big readings. I don't tend to do big readings. I like to do succinct, quick, fast readings for myself. So let me know what you think. Let me know what your process is. If you have done this tag, also feel free to let me know below. I'll be happy to watch your thought processes through this tag. And you know, you guys have a great rest of the day. You take care. Bye!